All right, so I by the age of 24, I started uh, getting into like harder drugs, like well, Adderall is like not hard. It actually really is.
I mean, it
Like
really
if you
is.
think
It,
about
it
it, it
really
is. It's
is.
like one molecule away from being methamphetamine. So I mean, it took over my life. Like
Yeah.
I would do anything to get it, like including like having girlfriends where I would literally just like be with them so I could steal their drugs.
Just to get the drugs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
I don't think I would have made it through college without Adderall. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I think it's a very bad thing.
I think it's a
It says a lot about workload, but also where you were. So, um, so anyways, I started getting super addicted to that. Yeah, and then I met this guy who was a pretty huge drug dealer in Lancaster City, and he was my best friend, to be honest. Like we were, but our friendship was completely contingent on us going out and getting trashed.
Yeah.
And like my mentality at that time was like, I'm gonna go further than I did last time
Yeah.
with everything I do. And so I started, cocaine, ecstasy, anything I could get my hands on, like acid, mushrooms, whatever it was. And so yeah, but then like when you increase drugs in your life, like you start having lots of side effects. So like, I was depressed before I started doing drugs, but then the drugs made me even more anxious and paranoid, and that added to my depression.
Yeah.
And I didn't even want to leave my house at certain points. So this life went on for the next 2 years. I basically just was selling drugs almost full time and doing as many drugs as I could, going out, partying, sleeping around, that whole life.
Yeah.
And I know there's so many. The thing is, like, there's so many people in Lancaster right now, Lancaster City, that are in the same lifestyle.
Yeah.
And people you would never expect.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the people we sold to were like doctors, or like even like people who were used to be pastors or pastors' kids or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, it's just you don't people don't understand how infiltrated drugs are in our like
In
society.
everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So then at 26, I actually like took too many drugs, started going crazy. And oh yeah, by the way, when I was 19, I joined the military, and so I was in the Army National Guard for 6
Oh,
years.
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to drill. Somehow, by the grace of God, I did not. It's called pissing hot.
Yeah.
I didn't fail my drug test, and so but I had this upcoming like 2-week annual training that I was supposed to go to, and I was like freaking out about it because I was like doing tons of drugs, and I was so anxious, and I really didn't like a lot of the people I served with in the military. I was really afraid that I was going to do something to like harm somebody else. And so ended up going to the hospital, just having crazy nervous breakdowns, and they ended up sending me to like a rehab. And when I was in the rehab, I had a lot of time to reflect. There's not much you could do in a rehab center other than like try to get better. And so I was just hanging out with these people, and there's this one kid, well, he's not a kid, he was a young adult, who came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, like, do you read the Bible?" And I was like, "Yeah, I used to." Like, you want? And then like he's like, "Oh, like Jesus loves you," and I was like, "No, he doesn't." And I was like, "I'll tell you why he doesn't." And like started like arguing with him because I had that background in apologetics. I knew what he would say, and so I knew how to defend atheism. But there was one thing about him I didn't understand, which was like the joy that he had. He had so much joy, and I was like, why is this guy so happy? I'm so sad.
Yeah.
Like, I have money. I like, had the life that a lot of people like wanted.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, and I didn't really have like a lot of obligations or things, but I had like everything. Like I didn't have like to work really hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yeah, I saw that he had this joy, and then like when I was in the rehab, the only people that visited me were my friends who are Christians and my parents.
Yeah.
And none of my friends who were selling drugs with me or buying drugs would come and visit me. Like, and I was like, you know, there's like something just different about these people, you know? Whereas growing up, I would say the one thing is like, I saw the hypocrisy in the church and I hated it like so much. So I started to see like there are people who actually follow what the Word of God says. And so I get out of rehab, I start getting back into the same things, and then I meet this girl. I go out to a bar actually, and I meet this girl who she loved Jesus so much. For some reason she started dating me. No idea why. I was still, you know, a drug addict, and we would have talks about God all the time. And she like asked me to come over to her house one night and talk about God. And so she asked me the question, what would it take for you to believe in God? And I said, it would take an undeniable act that he was real. And then 10 seconds later, I get a message on my phone from this woman I had never met in my whole life. And I look at it and it says, "Hey Colby, I know you don't know who I am, but I'm one of your like parents' friends, and God told me to send you a message, and he wants you to know that he's thinking about you and that he loves you and that like all this stuff." And I'm like, this is so weird. No one has,
literally 10 seconds later.
Literally 10 seconds later, I have the message on my phone. Like it's actually from Lise Stolzfus. You know Lise?
I don't think so.
Lise
no.
and Amos.
Amos, yeah.
Yeah, they go to our church.
Yeah.
But I didn't know who she was at all at that time. But man, like she's super prophetic, and so it makes sense now. But like, so I was like, whoa, this is crazy. But at the same time, I was so tethered to this lifestyle of sin that I didn't want to let go. And you know, it's easy just to forget about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, even Christians all the time just forget about things like that.
Yeah.
So I, you know, was like, yeah, I knew I needed to get out of the lifestyle I was living. And so that girl actually ended up breaking up with me. And she said it was because God told her to break up with me. And like on the way home actually from that breakup, it was like 2:00 in the morning in Lancaster City, and there was no one on the street. Yeah. And I'm like walking alone, and all of a sudden this guy comes out of nowhere and it's like grabs my arm and he's like, "Hey man, God bless you." And I was like, that's really weird. But like God is the reason that this girl just broke up with me, so I'm not really happy with this God, quotation marks. Yeah. And so anyways, I end up trying to get away from that life. I move away to Indiana, where okay, I gotta say this part. Anyways, I moved away to Indiana where I'm living with my cousin, or with my aunt and my cousin. And I wanted to have like a good, you know, relationship with my cousin-in-law. And so I was like, "Hey, you want to go to the movies?" And so I went to pick him up at work to go to the movies this one day. And okay, I'm gonna leave some stuff out because I just don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
That's good.
But basically, like, we end up going and doing meth, like, for the first time.
Okay.
And let me just say, disclaimer, he's much better. He's doing much better now.
Good.
And he's getting deliverance and stuff like that. So it's like, it's awesome. Like, I am no better than anyone I talk about. Let me say that.
That's a part of your story though. And that's not something to, you know, I don't think you're throwing anybody under the bus there.
Okay, good. Yeah. So anyways, like, we go and do meth, and I just spiral downhill like really fast, and I end up moving back to Pennsylvania, sitting on my couch and just being like, I hate my life. Like, what is going on? And this was a 3-week period of time where God just started like pouring into my life like crazy. I started getting messages from people on like Facebook and stuff, who would just say like, "Hey, Colby, like God really loves you. He cares about you." Like, just like strings of messages like this, like from random people for no reason. They didn't know what was going on with me, you know? And then my brother, he sat down with me this one day, Cameron, and he was like, "Colby, when I was, my brother's a worship leader, by the way. When I was leading worship, the presence of God just hit me so hard, and I saw a video of it later. He was hanging over his keyboard, and he's like, God told me a message that was for you, but I said it to the congregation. And in this message, he said, you're never too far gone. You're never too far out of God's reach. There's a verse that says like God's arms are long enough like to save you, basically. And then he said, we will follow in the footsteps of Paul and Peter, and we will make disciples of men. And like this just like resonated in me, and I was like, I don't know why, but I feel like this is true, but I don't believe in God. Anyway, so it was stuff like that, like over and over and over again.
You were
like,
still an atheist at this point.
I was still an atheist at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. But it started making me think. But I was so far in depression that like the thought would come and then it would disappear right away. So it all comes to a point this one night. I can't explain exactly what was happening in my mind, but I was sitting with my dad, and I was just it almost felt like I was out of my body looking at myself say this, but I turned to my dad and I said, Dad, I'm going to kill myself tonight. And he was like, I'm not going to let you do that. And I just like, as soon as I said that, I was like, why did I say that? And then I turned to him and I was like, actually, I'm not gonna kill myself. Don't worry about it. Like, just go to bed. And in a way, I was like, I just wanted to go away because I actually do want to do this. And so I went downstairs and I started pacing back and forth in my bathroom, and I was looking for something to like cut my wrist with. So then, you know how God speaks to us. Like it's hard to explain, but I knew God said like turn to your right. So I turned to my right, and I look, and there's this cross hanging behind this decoration in my room, and I see behind it, it almost looks like it's glowing, and it's like, it was really weird. But I know it's from the Lord, and I like heard this voice so clearly say, just pray to me one more time. And so I went over and I grabbed the cross, and I just pray like, God, if you're real, give me one more sign, and if you do, I'll give you every day of my life. And so I go to sleep. I felt at peace, and I wake up the next day, and I get a call from my cousin. It was her husband that like we went and did math together. And she says, hey Colby, I know you're going through anxiety and depression, but God told me to tell you about a dream that I had about you 7 years ago. And she's like, in this dream, we were in this room, and there's a ladder on the one wall in the room, and you kept trying to climb up this ladder, and these demons would come and they'd rip you down, and like you get a little bit further and they'd rip you down, and then finally you were at the very top of the ladder, and these ton of demons just came and ripped you to the ground and tore you to pieces, and you felt like you couldn't get up. And I'm like, and thinking in my mind like, this is exactly how I feel right now. And this is my life. Like I try to get anywhere in life, and I would just get torn to pieces. And then she said, at the end of the dream, you're standing hand in hand with Jesus, with our family, and we're walking towards a light. And I was like, wow. I asked God for a sign that he was real last night, and this is it. And so I went upstairs. I told my parents what happened, and they were like, okay, let's go pray. And so we went and prayed together, and they started praying deliverance over me. And I literally felt a weight lifted off my shoulder, like when Jesus says, like, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. I felt that. Like oh my gosh. And like my depression left me, and my anxiety left me. And I was just in this complete peace for the first time in my whole life. And I was laying on the ground, and then I heard God's voice for the first time so clearly. Like, you know, when he spoke to me that night, it was like, I wasn't sure if that was God. I knew this was God. And he said, call Gordon.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Make sure to check out our homepage at talktome.buzzsprout.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Talk to Me Media. You can also check us out on Instagram. Handle is TalkToMeWMikeV, and we're also on Twitter. Handle TalkToMeWMikeV as well. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for the support, and remember, everyone has a story to tell.